Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am pleased to welcome you all to the Happy Wellness webinar, How to Boost Your Metabolism Naturally, presented to you by Dr. Saman Rezai. I have the prestige honor of introducing you all to Dr. Rezai. Dr. Saman Rezai is a licensed naturopathic physician, NMD, receiving his doctorate from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. Prior to his doctorate, Dr. Rezai completed a master's in molecular biology from University of Texas at San Antonio. During his time at UTSA, he worked with strength and conditioning programs for multiple Division I teams at the school and was a graduate assistant to the men's and women's tennis teams. He has received his undergraduate degree in biology, pre-dental, from St. Mary's University in San Antonio. Dr. Rezai is passionate about sports medicine, pain management, gastrointestinal concerns, and endocrine dysfunction disorders. He is a general practice physician as well, looking to make the biggest change in your health with the smallest possible changes. Dr. Rezai loves motivating people to achieve health through the power of choice. On his own time, Dr. Rezai enjoys being active outdoors, traveling with his wife, Lauren, and spending time with their dog, Logan. I would like to remind all listeners that this webinar is being recorded, and we will email you a copy at the end. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please enter your questions into the questions box. At the end of the webinar, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Rezai, and again, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good Thursday. I know people are joining from all over. It is noon where I am at, so hopefully everybody's had a good morning and you are already having a great day. So today we're going to be talking about how to boost your metabolism naturally. You know, there's a lot of myth and reality kind of out there with what you can do with your metabolism, and people are always looking for, you know, those boosts or little ways to hack into their metabolism. But when it comes down to it, when you do things like that, what ends up happening is you actually will ruin your metabolism, slow it down, and cause more dysfunctions in the long run. So everything I'm talking about today about boosting your metabolism naturally is for the longevity, long-term effects of making sure your metabolism will speed up and you can have a great metabolism for the rest of your life. Okay? So just stepping away from this, I just always like to kind of, the comment at the bottom of this slide will just say there's no silver bullet when it comes to increasing metabolism. And that's just one of the things I was mentioning. You know, you're not going to find one little thing that's going to kind of just be the end-all, cure-all of answering that metabolism question of how do I get a faster, healthy metabolism. So in the above facts of the obesity facts, I think number 2 is what we're really going to be focusing on, where obesity is a hormonal, it's not a caloric imbalance, okay? So what ends up happening with most people is actually their hormones get thrown out of balance, and that's what actually causes them usually to put more weight and gain more weight and actually slow their metabolism down. Now, some of the ways that can be done is with the caloric imbalances that they do, but that creates the hormonal imbalances ultimately, and that's kind of where they get the problems with their metabolism. 3 is also going to be really important. We're going to be touching up on those. Insulin and cortisol are major hormonal drivers of weight gain, and we'll kind of talk into hacking into that about making those obviously work better for you and making sure they're not in overdrive. And then 4, exercise is not important for weight loss. The reason I like to put that one is because that's going to be the last thing that we're going to talk about, and that's not the most important for me. There's other things always establishing for people, and if you do those first, you can implement exercise at the end and get the greatest benefit from it without having to overdo it. So today I'm going to be talking about 4 building blocks of metabolism, okay? And you can see those on the screen. We're going to go through sleep. We're going to talk about balanced blood sugar. We'll talk about hydration, and then we'll get to the workouts like I said at the end. So first and foremost, building block number 1 is sleep. This is by far one of the most important things, and there's more and more attention kind of coming to sleep and understanding how important it is for you, and the fact that there's actually a certain amount that you need to hit And then if you're not hitting that, that's actually causing dysfunctions that happen kind of through the day, and then imbalance kind of your hormones. And that kind of slows your metabolism down. So like the little cartoon says, sleep is good for you, and it actually will boost your metabolism, okay? So less sleep, more fat, and how does this work? So when you look at these slides, what you're going to see is inadequate sleep leads to a few things. Now, this first part, hungrier, there's going to be a couple hormones here that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. If you heard from leptin and ghrelin, okay? So these imbalances of these two hormones actually are what cause you to become hungrier when you don't sleep as much. And that also will cause you to put more weight on, okay? If you don't sleep as much, you're awake longer. So let's say you're only sleeping 5 hours of the night. Now you've got 19 hours where you're going to have time to eat compared to the healthy amount of 7 to 8 hours is what you should be sleeping. That reduces your day by a third. And so you're awake for a few less hours and you don't eat as much, okay? And when you don't sleep as much either, obviously you get the fatigue factor, and then you mess with your thermal regulation. Ultimately, your body temp is actually really important about burning calories, and so that keeps your metabolism up. So you can see those two really slow your metabolism, and then the hungrier, eat more time. Obviously, we're going to eat. You're going to make worse decisions. You're going to eat more food, and this is all going to lead to the obesity factor that so many people are worried about or trying to change with their metabolism. So like I said, if you don't sleep enough, your leptin and ghrelin actually go out of balance. Now, when you do sleep enough, so this is going to be anywhere from 7 to 9 hours ultimately. I know some people think that they can get away with less. I don't see that to be true. I find that, really 7 to 10, usually my people who are harder workout people, they'll be closer to the 9 to 10 hours at night. But with enough sleep, you see that the ghrelin is low and your leptin is high. So ghrelin is actually kind of what ultimately kind of makes you hungry, it kind of sends us signals to eat, and then the leptin is kind of what lets you know that you're full, you've eaten enough, and there's no more that needs to eat. Now, when you don't sleep enough, what ends up happening is you have a higher amount of ghrelin, and so you kind of feel like, if anybody's ever pulled an all-nighter or you stayed up all night, you just feel like you're ravenous and there's not enough food that you can eat. Where normally you would eat a meal that would normally satisfy you, you're now at that point where you're kind of like, I'm still hungry and I could eat more. Because also the leptin's not there to kind of tell you, hey, you're full, time to stop eating. So the other way to hack into that is then look at sleep deprivation. So like we talked about, poor impulse control is going to happen. We're going to make poor choices. This is going to stress you out. And now we're messing with cortisol, okay? And when you start messing with cortisol, this is going to lead to adrenal fatigue, which is then going to compound the sleep issue. You're going to have more sleep problems, lead to sleep deprivation. So that cycle will just kind of kick over. It's going to build up inflammation, oxidative stress. All this is, again, going to stress your body out even more. You're going to start becoming dependent on stimulants. When I see people need stimulants to get them up in the morning and to keep them going during the day, this is a big problem. And then ultimately, you're going to see that inefficiency, and this is the metabolism that we're talking about, is now being compromised, okay? So do you sleep enough? You should be asking yourself this question right now. If this isn't running through your mind and you're not kind of looking at how much you're sleeping at night, this is one of the first, foremost things that I always ask with clients when I work with them. I want to know how much they're sleeping, how they're sleeping, do they fall asleep okay, do they stay asleep okay? So in this graph, what you can really see is there's the actual sleep need that you have, and as we obviously sleep at night, you'll see that need actually comes down. And then as the day builds up, obviously as it gets to night, that's where you'll start nodding off at night, getting tired if you're on a normal cycle, and you'll need to fall asleep at some point in the evening. Now, ultimately, we're supposed to be, circadian rhythm, so light is supposed to influence that. Some of this sometimes changes as we go through seasons. Now, some people aren't affected by that as much because of all the lights that we have. We have so many lights available to us, it messes with our diurnal rhythm, circadian rhythms that we should be doing. Now, the other thing to kind of really look at is that sleep urge line, and you'll notice that, some people are waking up and they still feel tired, If you give your body a little bit of a chance, cortisol is going to kick in and kind of peak out, and, it's going to peak here around 8 to 9, and we're going to see this graph somewhere down the road, but cortisol is kind of what gets you up, gets you going, gives you that pop. And then, the very common afternoon, people feel like they get tired. I'm going to show you ways, obviously, sleep is going to help this, and then we're going to talk into balancing the blood sugars and hydration, how you can kind of balance out these slumps or where you feel like you actually need more sleep. And that will actually help your metabolism kind of throughout the day. So now the other thing to look into sleep is I want you to understand there's actually sleep cycles. So why are we talking about 7 to 9 hours? Because what ends up happening is it actually allows you to go through about 5 cycles of REM sleep, okay? Now, REM sleep is actually where you kind of really get into that deeper sleep. It allows you to get into that non-REM sleep, and then that's where we kind of really make our big jumps and keep cycling through REM. Now, you'll see the red line in this graph. You go through, and each REM cycle is about an hour and a half. So, really, if we're talking 5 cycles, 7.5 hours is really where you kind of need to be. And when you really get into that 5th cycle, research is showing that more and more people actually do recovery. You actually do physical recovery here, but psychological recovery is what actually happens in this last part of your sleep, and that's really actually important for just mind functioning, being in a good mood, making better decisions. So that becomes really important as well. And then you can see this dotted line, people struggling to fall asleep, never really get into like really deep sleep. These people wake up at night, have to go to the bathroom, or, they struggle to go back to sleep. So doing your sleep hygiene, cleaning up your sleep will boost your metabolism, and it's going to balance out your ghrelin and your leptin, and ultimately it's going to also help balance the cortisol out during the day. Now, we're going to transition to building block 2, balance blood sugar, okay? So if we did one right, this is going to give us an advantage here already. So if you got a good night's sleep, we're going to be able to kind of balance your blood sugar, and we want to hit this green zone, okay? That's your fat burning zone, that's sustained energy, and that's what we're trying to accomplish throughout the day. So if we did our night right, now we're into our day, and we're trying to make sure that we do everything appropriate there to then help boost our metabolism in the best way possible. And then you can see, obviously, if you go red or blue, you start going high-low with your blood sugar. These go into lower energy, you're doing fat storage, and you're starting to mess with your metabolism. So blood sugar imbalance, why does that happen? We want to look at meals that are going to be possibly high glycemic and low glycemic and see how those affect our blood sugar, just to understand why this is happening. And then you'll understand the hormonal kind of connection. So it gives you spots where we have meals. If you have a high glycemic meal, we shoot up the blood glucose. We then dump a bunch of insulin, and then this becomes a problem, so we lead to fat storage, okay? Now, as something goes up, it must come down, okay? So once we crash down here, that leads to the stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. You're going to trigger cravings, and you're going to kind of go through this roller coaster, up, down, up, down, up, down. So you can see where both places of blood sugar being too high above this line and too low, ultimately kind of going below blood like normal and kind of going to low blood sugar, hypoglycemia ultimately will lead to kind of these happening. Now, with the clientele that I work with, most people eat really well. Oh. Okay, I think you just lost you guys there for a second, but what you'll see is, so my clientele that I work with, they eat really well, but they don't eat enough. And so actually when you miss in between meals, what you'll see is they'll actually get hypoglycemic and have blood sugar crashes. And that actually starts to mess with the cortisol as well. So in the middle of the road, let's look for a healthy adrenal zone. This is going to be balanced blood sugar. And this is what's going to really help boost your metabolism, make it the most efficient to run throughout the whole day, and you will actually not store as much weight. So we avoid the spikes, insulin resistance doesn't happen, we don't get that tired, wired and tired energy, the anxiety, the weight gain, and then weaken your metabolism. Without having blood sugar crashes, we don't go high cortisol, increased adrenaline, we don't get those crashed energy, we don't get sweet cravings, and then ultimately this is going to weaken your metabolism as well. So just to understand, again, when that insulin is being spiked, this is going to have multiple effects, throughout your body. Now, your liver detoxification pathways are going to slow down. For women, actually, testosterone increases. For men, their estrogen increases. And these hormone imbalances will kind of lead to, ultimately, weight gain and also the metabolism being affected. So that's when somebody says, hey, your hormones might be the reason your metabolism is off. This would be appropriate for kind of looking at that statement being said for somebody. So if we're looking at balanced blood sugar, we need consistent, balanced meals, okay? For all you people, this is where you want to ask yourself that question, do I eat breakfast every day? Because if you're not, you're causing your metabolism to slow down. If we don't get breakfast in right here, you actually slow your metabolism down, and that needs to happen within 1 hour of waking, all right? If we don't get that meal in and it's not high protein and we don't boost our metabolism, the rest of the meals that we have actually later on in the day, we tend to be higher calorie, and we actually will store most of that away as fat because we've slowed our metabolism down by not having breakfast in the morning. So consistent balanced meals. We're looking to have meals within an hour of waking, and then you want to have meals. Usually, lunch and dinner times, the 3 meals in one day should work just fine. If you've gotten a good night's sleep, your hormones are in balance, you're eating a balanced diet, and I'll kind of go into what those macronutrients should kind of look like for you, you should be able to kind of get away with eating those 3 meals a day. Sometimes, some people will eat the 5, 6 meals a day because they're trying to boost their metabolism. That definitely works, but it's not necessary. And I know that's a question a lot of people always end up asking, so it's not necessary to have the 5, 6 meals. You can do 3, but you may need to do the 5, 6 meals if your cortisol's out of balance, your ghrelin leptin's out of balance, and all of a sudden, your metabolism's not working as efficiently as it should. So that is when, multiple meals can come in handy, but like I said, it's not necessary. So again, with that leptin, this can be influenced as well. If we're having those steady, consistent meals throughout the day, that's going to increase from the fat cells, having more leptin released to go to the brain, and you're going to maintain your energy intake and expenditure at a set point. That means you're going to have a nice, consistent metabolism of using energy appropriately and burning it appropriately. Now, when you start missing in between meals and you kind of hit that fasting, and this is the hypoglycemia ultimately, you go low glucose, low insulin, this reduces the leptin, this is going to kind of increase that hunger craving, you're going to hit that rebound, and then your metabolism isn't working appropriate, right? So now you've slowed your metabolism down by not having those consistent meals. So now we're going to have increased energy intake, and you're going to decrease the expenditure, ultimately, like we said, slowing down your metabolism. Now, the consistent meals that we want to have, they need to provide certain things. Now, protein consistent throughout the day is one of the best things to kind of balance your blood sugar out, okay? It slowly releases into the blood and then also will keep kind of, you full for a little bit longer than complex carbs or, refined carbohydrates obviously are the ones that give you the spike. But protein here you can see kind of slows that blood sugar coming on, but it doesn't necessarily keep your blood sugar balanced, okay? So what we have to do is you want to look at these green lines. We're looking for meals that have proteins, complex carbs, and fibers ultimately. That blend has been shown to kind of get your blood sugar to go up slowly, stay within this range that we kind of want to go so we're not going high blood sugar or low blood sugar, and it lets it kind of come down the slowest and last the longest. This is what I'm telling you, if you're balanced with your hormones and you're eating appropriate meals and you've got a good night's sleep, you can get away with those 3 meals a day. Now, most of the people I'm working with, again, their sleep is disrupted, their hormones are out of balance, and so they can't get away with these 3 meals. So sometimes we implement snacks mid-morning, mid-afternoon, or we do go for the 5 or 6 meals throughout the day if they can, one, handle it, or they're not able to eat meals large enough to kind of keep their blood sugar balanced. So you got a good night's sleep, you're balancing your blood sugar throughout the day, metabolism should be going pretty well. Building block number 3 now, hydration. That's your H2O, water. This is actually really important, okay? Now, most people are dehydrated in America. If you look at most Americans, they will be dehydrated. And so how much do you really need of water? So, the basic thing is to look at your body weight. You want to divide it by 2, and that's like kind of the number of ounces that you should be drinking daily. And that's not factoring in anything else that will either be increasing the amount of hydration that you need. So what they're saying is just divide that by 8 and then kind of get that in 8 portions kind of throughout the day. Now, this demand will change if you are exercising, high demand job, pregnant ladies. All these things will kind of factor into you needing more amount of water, and that's kind of what will kind of change the amount of water you kind of need to take in for the day. Now, the other nice little thing about the infographic is it just kind of shows you how much water is actually needed to your systems throughout your body. Why wouldn't you just even look at it? Muscle, 75% is water. Your brain fires on water. Your lungs are using water. So everything that we're doing here is to keep you hydrated, okay? So just like we talked about consistent meals throughout the day, we also want to get that consistent water throughout the day, but most important is actually the time that we're getting it in. And actually the first thing that you want to do in the morning if you really want to boost your metabolism is you want to get water in right when you wake up, okay? Now, they've done a lot of research of this. You can look at number 3 here, and drink at least 16 ounces of chilled water will boost your metabolism for 24 ounces in the morning, okay? I usually recommend people to get anywhere from, I like them to get 20 to 24 ounces, so we're talking a little bit over a half liter, first thing in the morning, okay? That actually will do a benefit, not only just getting your hydration status because you've been dehydrated sleeping through the whole night. You haven't had water probably since dinner or sometime earlier than that, so now we're talking over 12 hours that you haven't been drinking water, and so you're leading into dehydration at that point. Now, why am I saying first thing in the morning? Because most people, that's not the first thing they do. What is the first thing that most people do? First thing that most people do is they drink coffee, okay? And this is actually a diuretic, and so it actually dehydrates you. So what most people are doing is they need to get that caffeine in the morning when they wake up because their hormones are out of balance. They probably didn't get that good night's sleep. And if you look, cortisol should be peaking around 8 or 9 a.m. Caffeine can influence cortisol. Caffeine will actually influence and pick up your cortisol by 30%. But the problem is you need to look at that. If you're dependent on your caffeine to boost your cortisol in the morning, why is that? That means your adrenals aren't functioning appropriately. You should be able to wake up in the morning, have your body naturally spike its own cortisol. And then if you do need some caffeine, honestly, what some of the research is now showing is that you actually want to have, around 9 to 10 a.m. is where you would have that cup of coffee. That kind of keeps your cortisol kind of boosted through this morning time, and you'll get the most benefit from out of the caffeine. Because they've also starting to show with research, long-term caffeine use is actually suppressing your cortisol levels, and it's actually taxing your adrenals. So that's where you start looking for people who are dependent on caffeine and stimulants to kind of get their energy, get them up in the morning, and get that afternoon kind of buzz going. They're becoming adrenally compromised. They're not getting that good sleep. They're not recovering. They're not keeping their blood sugar balanced, right? So everything's kind of coming together now. We see that good night's sleep, balancing the blood sugar, drinking the water to stay hydrated, and then caffeine ultimately, it's not necessarily that it's bad for you, but long term, it will kind of decrease your cortisol output, and then that affects your metabolism. We're talking about boosting metabolism. Yes, the initial boost from caffeine will do that, but in the long run, it's actually going to start to drain your adrenals and actually tax your metabolism. Now, we're talking about hydration. Water is important. We got to talk about the alcohol. So like it says, the slide says, blame it on the alcohol, right? So alcohol contributes to weight gain, and this happens in a pretty simple, straightforward fashion. Now, when you look at macronutrients, you have carbs and you have proteins, which all kind of have 4 kilocalories per gram, and then fats will have 9 kilocalories per gram. Alcohol is looking around 7, okay? Now, the other thing about alcohol is when it comes into your system, your body can't store it as energy. It has to process all those calories that come in. Now think, you're having 1 drink, 2 drinks, depending on who's making your drink, it's going to be several hundred calories. You might get away with a couple hundred with a beer, but you start getting the mixed drinks where they add in sugar on top of it. Now we're talking 400 or 500 calories per drink. How many of those do you have? So first, your body has to process all that alcohol. It has to get metabolized, okay? This actually stops you from burning fat from your own body, and it actually doesn't allow you to store any appropriate kind of glycogen from your glucose. And so it ultimately leads to weight gain and a slowed metabolism. So if you're looking to boost your metabolism, look, I'm all for having a drink here and there, but when it comes to it, if you're really serious about boosting metabolism, you want to cut out the alcohol. It makes the biggest difference in the world. Now, the other part of that is, we'll bring it full circle, is a lot of people usually like to use alcohol like it's a nightcap, saying it helps them sleep. And there is some truth to that. When you actually do have a little bit of alcohol, it does help you fall asleep. If you look at these, normal REM cycles will be in your black lines here. But what's going to end up happening is you're going to get a big change with the way the alcohol causes your REM cycles to happen. Yeah, you fall asleep, but you're not getting quality sleep here. The other thing is, it's going to only have a few hours, and all of a sudden people are waking. They didn't get good sleep. You're having to process the alcohol because you didn't get to take in your glucose, complex carbs that you ate, and store that as glycogen in your muscles and liver, which is really energy that your body is storing for the next day. That's why people will wake up, they go hypoglycemic, because they don't have any stores to kick in, when they had that night of drinking or they had a few drinks. because they have to process all those calories. And that's why they wake up, they feel bloated, they're dehydrated, they're also going to start putting weight on, and their metabolism is now slower. And not only are they hungry, they're probably not going to make good decisions about what to eat that day, and that's going to lead to more weight gain. So what we're looking for is you want to cut out most of your caffeine. You can use a little bit in the morning, honestly. If you do, you want to do that before around 10 or 11 a.m. If you're going to do something in the afternoons, you really want to probably stick with diet coffee or, decaf coffee. Stay away from the diet sodas, and use teas. Teas would actually be a nicer substitute because they also have antioxidants in them, pro-oxidants such as EGCG and green tea and white tea, and those will have more mild caffeine content for the afternoon. So we're drinking enough water, getting your day started off with water. Do that before you have any coffee. It'll make a huge difference. Balance your blood sugars out. Get a good night's sleep. So now we come to the fourth building block, okay? If you've been doing the other three things that we're talking about, your metabolism is going to start working wonderfully, okay? That's going to be all the boost it is. And the thing is, it'll start to pick up more and more and more, and you'll have one of the most efficient metabolisms. Now, the reason I say that exercise is necessary, there's so many benefits from exercise. I'm not telling you it's what you need to do, but a lot of people want to throw exercise in first to try to boost their metabolism when their hormones are really out of balance, and this actually causes them to crash sooner than later, and actually they don't get the benefits they're looking for as fast. So why are we talking about that? Why do I leave it last? If you actually look at your metabolism, it's always kind of made up into three parts when you look at it. You have your basic metabolic rate, and that's the largest piece of your metabolism. Think of this as you sitting in a chair all day breathing oxygen. That oxygen going in will then go into your muscles, will go through the mitochondria, and we're going to kind of create a metabolism that way ultimately. Now, granted, the more skeletal muscle you have, the higher that this basic metabolic rate is. But if you actually look at physical activity, it's a smaller piece of the pie. So why would that be the first thing that you add in when I need to balance your hormones out so that your body works better? You need to get more sleep. You need to balance out your blood sugars, and you can also take on a little bit more exercise that way. So that's why it's usually the piece that I actually remove from most people. If I have them do anything, it'll just be light activity until we build up to more intense exercise. Now, when you do start adding exercise in, you need to focus on building skeletal muscle, okay? A lot of people get involved into exercise and want to do fat loss. But the problem is you want to boost your metabolism. So if you're really looking to boost your metabolism, building lean skeletal muscle is something that you kind of want to do so that you have a higher metabolism. And I'll get into that with you and show you kind of why that is. All right, so when you're looking at the metabolism, what you kind of want to see is we want to build more muscle. And the reason is that it's metabolically higher than fat adipose tissue. So when you compare 1 pound of, this is looking at 5 and 5, but when we look at 1 pound of muscle, you burn 50 more calories compared to 5 calories. That's a 10-fold increase. Now, if you go back and you're focusing on your workouts on burning fat off, what will end up happening is, yes, you're tapping into that, but you're technically not building any skeletal muscle to boost your metabolism. So you're trying to use the exercise to burn fat off. And when most people are trying to do that, they actually aren't hormonally balanced, and so they struggle with actually burning those calories off appropriately. So again, our focus is to build muscle, and we don't want to necessarily focus on fat. That will be a side effect of everything that we're doing. By increasing our metabolism, you calorically have now, coming back up here, you'll have a higher basic metabolic rate because you have more skeletal muscle. This will allow you to have a better metabolism, and you actually be able to burn adipose tissue easier. So that's why building the lean muscle mass helps out, because it gives you higher metabolism. Again, so muscle gain, fat loss, is just kind of looking at it. And this is where I'll have somebody, I've worked with people and they end up building the skeletal muscle. They actually look leaner, but their weight is actually heavier. And so some people, you know, they're so caught up with weight. Weight is the number. They have to be a certain number. But what they don't realize is at that increased weight, even though they look slimmer, they have a higher metabolism. their BMI is actually a little bit higher, but their BDI, their body density index, is actually lower, and that's actually more of a benefit. Their body fat percentage is lower, and that's also a benefit. So when people are thinking about weight, it doesn't necessarily get you to the place that you want to be for a better metabolism. If you're just trying to cut weight loss, you will lose muscle as well as fat, and then actually will slow your metabolism down. So the other thing with lifting weights is most people who go into do workouts or movements, they really focus on a concentric contraction. This is actually usually the flexion portion of an exercise. And so what you'll see is the movement kind of flexing the muscle, and nobody ever focuses on the eccentric kind of contraction. So this is what some people call as negative. There's a big movement in exercise now with it's rhythm lifting, and if you can find a trainer that does this, they're pretty savvy and they're kind of staying on top of what they do. What they'll do is actually when they give you your sets of workouts to do, whether it be a squat or a bench press or curls or triceps or whatever it is, it'll have kind of like usually 4 numbers. And what will end up happening is they'll give you a number that says how many seconds to do the concentric contraction. The next number will tell you how long to hold it at the peak of that movement. And then there will be a third number that kind of tells you how fast to do your eccentric movement as you're kind of relaxing, because you actually will break up more muscle tissue that way so that you'll actually get a better burn from the workout. And then they'll actually have a 4th number in there telling you how long to wait between the next rep. So if you find somebody that's giving you that, they're definitely ahead of the game, and they're definitely getting your body to try to peak out faster than somebody who's just telling you, hey, go do 10 reps, 3 sets, come back, and then we'll do follow-up. So if you can find somebody who does rhythm sets for you, reps, then you'll definitely get more out of that, and your body will benefit from it as well. The next thing with exercise is so many people are asking about, HIIT training versus cardio. So HIIT is ultimately high intensity interval training. And so what it ends up doing is it's getting your body to boost its metabolic rate by doing bursts of training. So if you actually look at the gray lift or part of the graph down below, this would actually be kind of standard cardio. Somebody going out, they're running, let's say 3 to 5 miles. They just kind of run at a steady pace. They definitely burn calories while they do that, but as soon as they're done with that workout, they have very minimal kind of burn post-workout. So most of the calories burned is during exercise. The benefit to doing high-intensity interval training is that you're doing like bursts of training. Imagine you're either running on a treadmill, running outside, riding a bike, rowing, and for minute cycles, for 20 seconds, you'll do like an intense burst. You'll go as hard as you can for 20 seconds and then rest for the rest of that minute of the 40 seconds. So what this ends up doing is it gets your metabolic rate up, it gets your heart rate up, you actually will burn more adipose tissue, and then you kind of cycle down in the rest period, and then again repeat these cycles, repeat these cycles, repeat these cycles. Now, you usually don't do these for as long as traditional cardio, and some people argue necessarily the burn's about the same, but the biggest difference is this after-burn effect. After you do HIIT training, that thermogenesis that we were talking about earlier, you actually will increase this, and this will be workout induced, and you actually will burn significantly more calories than you will with just cardio, and that's where you actually make the most gain. Now the other thing is it burns fat off. It also has great cardiovascular effects, and you don't have to do it for as long, so it's easier to actually do a shorter workout. You can do 15, 20 minutes and get the same effect and even more post-workout than actually doing traditional cardio. So this is something, as I get people to switch on to, I'll tell them, maybe just do like anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes of whatever the exercise is, and they're thinking, oh, I normally do cardio for like an hour, I could do half hour. They'll be so sore from just doing those bursts that I tell them start out 5, 10 minutes, start building up to wherever they can, up to like 20, 30 minutes, and usually that's enough for that. And you'll actually boost your metabolism significantly, build more skeletal muscle, and the after effects are just so much more. Now, the other thing with exercise, and this is where I get worried, and actually a lot of my clients I deal with actually start crashing their systems out, is overtraining. So this is where, again, with building blocks that we're talking about, sleep should be priority, you should balance out your blood sugar, drink enough water, and those 3 things should become first before you kind of do anything with adding your exercise regimen into it. Because what ends up happening is people end up trying to work out so hard, they're trying to lose the weight, boost their metabolism, so they're having to work out like 6 days a week, try to do 2 hours a day, and that's a little ridiculous, okay? What you'll see is you should have a ramp of progression of exercise, which you kind of get, you know, excessive muscle soreness, but it should be enough to kind of where you're sore, but not to where you can't like go back to work out for a few days. Now, what ends up happening is with these people that overtrain, you start getting fatigue performance decline, okay? So these are the people who are like, you know, I was doing really great in my workouts, now I'm not doing so well, you know, I'm having trouble recovering, I'm struggling just to finish the workout that I used to kind of thrive into. This is getting into the overtraining. And then when they get into overuse, this is where they start needing like treatment. And I actually, quite a few clients come to me. There are people who want to work out 5, 6 days a week. They don't eat enough, sleep enough, drink enough water, take care of themselves, and their endocrine systems start to crash. The adrenals start to crash, cortisol, their thyroid start to crash, and then their hormones start to get out of balance or depleted, the sex hormones being estrogen or testosterone. So this is where, you know, I really want to push for people not to overtrain, you know, implement a small little exercise of this building block, add building blocks 1, 2, and 3 in, and then you actually will get a better boost in your metabolism that will actually last for long term without kind of running yourself into the ground, because sometimes the recovery here from the overuse and when you need treatment can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to really kind of build your body back up, depending on how much you decide to wreck it. So this is where I always ask, are you helping or are you hurting, okay? Are the things that you're doing benefiting? This is where I talk about the coffee, caffeine. These are things that affect your adrenals, and actually these are your little adrenal glands that they sit on top of your kidneys and they produce the cortisol. You know, depending on what you're doing with lifestyle, you know, lack of sleep, overexertion, poor eating habits, diet-wise, you know, are you not eating enough good food, like we talked about, the proteins with the complex carbs and the fiber to balance out your blood sugar, the caffeine? Is this kind of unbalancing your adrenals that way? So this is actually where, if you're looking to boost your metabolism naturally, look into your habits, look into your lifestyles. They have the biggest impact, and they have the most lasting effect. If you're doing something that's a quick fix, somebody's promising you, hey, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks will get you there, be careful, because it may overstress your system and actually crash you out at the end, and then you're in a worse place than when you started. So just make sure that you're taking your time and being smart about your approach for the way you're trying to boost your metabolism. Remember, there is no silver bullet. So great talk for, you know, we're in the mid-holiday season, so we're pretty much right here. You've gotten through 2 holidays. We got 2 more to go through. I thought this was a funny infographic in the sense of showing people, most people actually put their weight on in the 3rd quarter of the year, and it's due to these holidays. People start falling off exercise regimens if they haven't already done it. They just went through the summer. Usually more people get more active during that time. They start getting into the fall. Lifestyles happening, families happening, relationships happening. All these events are kind of happening, so people fall off the diet. They're not sleeping as good. More drinks are happening at these parties. And so you see the weight gain happen, and the average American can put 5 to 10 pounds on. Now, you do that for a few years, all of a sudden, you know, you could be anywhere from like 15, 20, some people up to 30, 40 pounds heavier. And so now we really got to get back to the basics, those 4 building blocks of making sure that you kind of get appropriate sleep, balance your blood sugar, stay hydrated, and get exercise in that's not overexerting you, so that you can kind of be like this, all right? You can have broke your diet over the holidays, you didn't exercise for a week, and you didn't gain any weight. So that's what's going to kind of get you through the next month. If you've listened to this, implement some of these changes, and you'll find out that when New Year's comes around, you're not having to make as many New Year's resolutions. So thanks for listening. I think we'll be taking some questions here and try to answer anything that we didn't kind of cover during the presentation.
Thanks, Dr. Azadi. Quick question for you. Did you Photoshop those hats on the photo 2 slides back?
No, those actually just came that way. I found that online, and it was actually a fun little infographic. I had to use it.
Yeah, that's a great little infographic right there. I really like that. Lots of great information. We do have a few questions that have come in. If there are any other questions, please go ahead and type them into the questions box. The first question I have for you is, does apple cider vinegar help to boost metabolism?
So that's apple cider vinegar is a great product. It actually doesn't necessarily do anything to boost your metabolism. It can be beneficial in helping with your digestion and absorption of blood sugar. So the best way actually to use apple cider vinegar is you probably want to do 1 to 2 teaspoons, probably mix it in some water, and have it before every meal. So that would be like 3 times a day if you're doing breakfast, lunch, dinner. And so what this will do is actually help your appetite control. So this will actually influence your leptin ghrelin a little bit. And then it also helps with the absorption of carbohydrates. So it doesn't allow it to happen as fast, so you don't get those spikes, and then we don't go into fat storage as easily.
Great. Are there any products that you recommend that have been researched to help boost the metabolism at all?
You know, usually when I'm recommending supplements or something for people, it's because I'm trying to balance out endocrine system, the GI tract, if it's somebody suffering from like IBS, where they're having more like constipation, diarrhea, they're not digesting appropriately. People suffer from leaky gut, so supplements that contain like L-glutamine, herbs like Althea to kind of help balance out their gut, soothe it. There's a lot of adaptogenic herbs. Those need to be used appropriately with people. If cortisol is taking too high at night, you know, ashwagandha, magnolia are really good herbs. Product called Cortisol Manager, I believe, from Integrative Therapeutics is a great one at night, and that helps get the cortisol down. If you're looking for a nice all-around kind of adaptogenic herb, I usually use RLC Labs Adrenal. That product usually used in the morning and somewhere around lunch or the afternoon, and that kind of helps to boost cortisol levels or even lower cortisol levels if they're too high, since the herbs are adaptogenic. Usually we use, for the GI soothing, I mean, you can use things like Permaclear, gosh, I'm trying to think, even just like an L-glutamine powder, you can take grams of L-glutamine kind of throughout the day, and that really helps to kind of soothe the GI tract because it's the #1 amino acid used by all the cells of the GI tract. So you can take anywhere from 5 to 40 grams a day, and that actually, away from meals, and that will help to kind of soothe the GI tract out.
Great, thank you. Moving on to like the more diets, do you think being a vegan or vegetarian helps to boost metabolism better than, let's say, a normal Western diet?
I mean, that's an easy yes. The reason that ends up happening is your kind of standard Western diet ends up doing like heavy fat, saturated fat. You know, sometimes can be over excessive on proteins, and those will sometimes slow the metabolism down. And most of the Western diet doesn't have, you know, good intake of vegetables, so fruits, which are going to be highly nutritious, great antioxidants. And so doing those diets can definitely help boost your metabolism. Now, one of the things that can happen is you can see those people, you could see a vegan or vegetarian that's also healthy if they're more of a carboholic. They kind of just hit more refined carbohydrates because they're trying to avoid the animal products. That doesn't necessarily make anything much better for them, but if they do it appropriately, definitely. I mean, it'll clean out your system. It gets your GI tract to work better. You have better blood sugar control, and their hormones balance out much faster. So definitely vegan vegetarian diets can be very beneficial for boosting metabolism.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions for you. The next one is juice cleanses. Do you recommend using a juice cleanse or a regular cleanse to kind of restart, or is it a good way to actually boost your metabolism?
That's kind of, it's a good question. You really want to wait. I do that for client to client. There's certain clients that I won't recommend juice cleanses for. Especially if somebody tends to be thinner, they don't necessarily have the weight to lose, and so sometimes when you do these cleanses, people drop weight very quickly, and so it can be more problematic. Now, I do have some clients that sometimes are, if they are a little heavier, carrying more weight, they can definitely do a juice cleanse. I usually don't like them to do it for longer than a week or 2, just to get their metabolism going, and then ultimately get them on regular foods, because people will become addicted to things that have worked in the past, and so if they think the juice fast helped them, they'll keep trying to go to that, and I've seen people actually really ruin their metabolism because juicing is a lot of sugar. You're kind of isolating the sugar and taking the fiber out from all those healthy things. Usually they're doing, great fruits, great vegetables. It seems like it should be really good for you. You're isolating nutrients. And if you are having GI issues, it helps with the digestion to simplify it with the juice. But long-term wise, you're causing a lot of juice. If you're doing too much of it to go hyperglycemic and hypoglycemic, causing those spikes with the insulin, and then you end up kind of ruining the metabolism. So done appropriately, yes, they can be very beneficial. I don't recommend them as much because I want to build lifestyle modifications for people. So I want them to fix their diet to get onto an appropriate diet so they know that from the get-go I'm all about them eating great proteins, complex carbs, fiber, good healthy fats to balance out their diet. So for the long run, they know these are the changes they're making that are going to last for them, and they don't need to keep going to the juice fast to get that to happen. I'd be more interested in somebody blending so they get to keep the fiber and a lot of the other nutrients for them, but there is a place, and when used appropriately, juicing can be very powerful.
Thank you. That was, I know that was a tough question for you. I agree. Lifestyle changes are definitely the right way to go, especially during the holiday season. Getting off of track is okay in moderation, so we should enjoy this time too. But keep on with the lifestyle too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just I totally agree with you, Sean. I mean, you're right on it. I mean, that's, I always tell people when they want to make changes, look to make a 2-degree change, because if you implement that for long enough, you will be in a totally different place. It doesn't seem like a lot at first, but given enough time, that's what makes the biggest change. And it's a small, easy change. People can handle it, and then they're able to kind of make it last for a while. So
about forming that habit and then building off of that. So the last question we have for you is what about the alkaline diet and alkaline waters and just the whole pH and acidic system in your body? Do you think a more acidic system is more sluggish and less has an effect on the metabolism?
Yes, it definitely does. I mean, it'll definitely set you up for more infections, immune dysfunction, obviously leading to more cancer. So I don't necessarily push people for alkalized water. I know it has good benefits. I haven't personally seen the research to kind of really support alkalized water having the impact that they say it does. But I do understand, obviously, like when people are drinking sodas or a lot of coffees, they definitely are more acidic, and they do have that impact on them. So yes, I think more of an alkaline diet is great. I think that sets you up to eat a less inflammatory diet. Obviously, you're going to eat better foods. You're going to make better choices, better habits that way, and so ultimately it leads to improving the pH of your body. And pH is definitely important. I mean, the blood's trying to be at a certain pH. Your urine and stool, as it's being passed through your body, wants to be at a certain pH. So being more acidic is definitely more detrimental to the body. I think if you're drinking good, clean water, it should be fine. You can always test the pH and see where it is. I don't think it needs to be like, some of this alkaline water goes up to like 8 or 9. If you're not getting that in all the time, I don't think it's going to hurt you. At the same time, if you're getting benefit from that, I'm always all for whatever makes a difference. But I think if we make some of the changes like you were just mentioning, those lifestyle modifications, getting solid habits in place, it'll kind of follow suit with the alkalineness of your body and kind of balance out the pH for it. But definitely there's merit to that. I've seen people have great benefit from it. So it's just not something I necessarily practice or use a lot in clinic.
Thanks. This has been a very well-informed webinar. We appreciate all of your information, and we look forward to having you again. For all of those out there, please enroll in our upcoming webinars. Our next one will be Healthy Scoop, Becoming Super on Tuesday, January 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern, presented by Dr. James Rouse, co-founder of Scoop. Join Dr. Rouse as he discusses the latest science on what works when it comes to creating success with self-care. To enroll, go to www.LuckyVitamin.com and search webinar in the search bar. I would like to thank all of Lucky Vitamin's customers. Please and Dr. Zai for joining us today. Have a great day, and we look forward to having you on our webinars again in the future.
Awesome. Thank you.